Next up, I'd like to invite my panelists to take the stage. I will call you up by one. Please take a seat. Once we have the whole panel situated, we will go ahead and have each company give a 5-minute overview of who they are and what they do. So first off, I'd like to invite the other Charles Weller to stage. It just about blew my mind to learn that we had 2 Charles Wellers in this industry. So I'm looking for Charles Weller from Busy Bee Distribution. Welcome. Please give our panelists a round of applause as they take the stage. Thank you so much, Charles, and please have a seat. Next up, Adrienne Nelson of Cascade Cannabis Distribution. Adrienne, please take the stage. Here she comes. From Highly Distributed, we have Chris Mallett. Chris Mallett, there he comes. Thank you so much. Next up, Lindsay Jacobson. Thanks, Lindsay. And Lindsay's company is known as The Drop. The Drop. And next, I have Kelly Sue Buchwald from Green Sea Distribution. Please come on up. Fantastic. I'm so excited to have such an incredible panel tonight of such bright and talented minds. This topic is very elusive and not often talked about, so I'm looking very forward to hearing from each of you. I'll start with Charles Weller, and if you'd tell us a little bit about Busy Bee Distribution.
Sure. Busy Bee Distribution started about a year ago now, based on a bunch of relationships we had at a dispensary up in Portland called Canadaddy's. They had a business model in the retail end that was very successful, but involved lots of products on the shelf, which is hard for dispensaries to manage. And we looked at other industries for how they solve that problem and came up with a fairly obvious solution, which we all came to, which is distributors do that for them. They all consolidate these brands down, provide the service of consolidating test functions, consolidating the process of intakes. And so we launched that model by relying on some of our partners to fund us through consignment, stock our menu up, and we've now built up to 8 sales reps, have a bunch of exclusive product lines, manufacture a couple of them ourselves, and continue to grow. We're just now breaching into the Eugene area, so we're looking forward to making connections with people tonight that have products and or dispensaries. Thanks for the time tonight.
Thank you, Charles.
Hi there, my name is Adrienne. I work with Cascade Cannabis Distributing. We are a newer distribution company based out of Eugene area. Let's see, I've been in the industry for about a year, and within that year I've built a lot of connections throughout the state. Not in Portland quite yet, but you know, sales is all about connecting people, and that's what I do and love to do. So as the industry builds, we build, everything is growing, and as growers are creating products, you know, they really need an avenue for distribution, and the distribution really makes it easy for the retailers, and is a really great connection between both. I'm excited tonight to learn about what everybody's doing and distribution avenues and my fellow distributors, and yeah, thank you for having me.
Howdy. My name is Chris Mallott. I work with Highly Distributed. I'm the president and CEO of the company. We have offices in Portland, Oregon and Talent, Oregon. We work with about 180 dispensaries throughout the Oregon area, predominantly up the I-5 corridor. I won't bore you with what is distribution. I think many of you probably know what distribution is. It's been a business that's been around for many, many years, and we're not really reinventing the wheel here. The things that we are doing that I think are unique to this industry are the kinds of things that all of you are probably already having to deal with yourself, which is this is industry that is existing somewhere between this kind of hyper-regulated new thing that's coming out that has this very odd dichotomy with the federal government and state laws, any of you that have been in the industry for a long time recognize all the hurdles and challenges that you faced as you move from point A to point B. I think at its core, though, a wholesale company, and I'd like to make the differentiation between wholesale and distribution because they are two different businesses that are intertwined. Typically, a distribution company is a company that gets out there and just moves products from point A to point B, is not handling the sales, the marketing, the order management components. You see those more on the wholesale side. So for those of us that are engaged in both wholesale and distribution activities, we're really sort of playing two different roles, two different hats. And at its core, this is a business that's about relationships, but it's about maintaining those relationships in a cogent and compliant way. So Highly Distributed is very proud of what we've done and what we've built. Some of you here in the audience we work with today, hopefully we're able to develop new relationships with folks that we aren't working with, and we can see where the future will take us. Thank you for your time.
My name is Lindsay, and I'm with the Drop Distribution. It started out of a need, being that I'm originally from Southern Oregon, and a lot of the growers that I worked with down there have not really built brands for themselves or got out of the Rogue Valley. A lot of them want to stay on their gardens, and so kind of like they've already described, the distribution company is that wheel that gets it from the gardens to the dispensaries. So that's what we're doing. Thank you. My name's Kelly Sue. I'm with Green Sea Distribution here in Eugene. We launched in January. We have a lot of expertise knowledge. We have Charles Weller from Critical Source. He's our COO. Many of you may know Noah. He founded MJ Charts and also the Emerald Trade Alliance. We have a lot of ancillary services, so a lot with Chris talked about how we have wholesale and distribution. So we understand the challenges that both, producers and retailers face. Getting a product to market, we have a lot of compliance challenges with regulations changing basically on a weekly basis. So Charles Weller of Critical Source is our compliance officer. So if you ever need help with anything on the retail side, or as well as a producer, if you have questions, we're definitely here to help. We're on board with, compliant packaging, labeling, getting those products to dispensaries. We have a sales team we're building out. Currently pretty saturated in Lane County, but starting to move around the state. We build websites, we do marketing. We're pretty much your one-stop shop when it comes to getting a product to market. Also, just being able to order from a catalog on your own time. We have an online catalog at greenseedistribution.com. You can register, log in, and view our catalog of products that's being updated weekly. So thanks everybody for coming out. Super excited to talk to you tonight.
Very, very excited to learn more about distribution tonight. So I have a few prepared questions, and I would ask the audience, while we're going through the Q&A, please think about questions that you want answered tonight. This event is for you. So just starting off, would somebody like to speak a little bit to the shape of the current legal landscape surrounding wholesaling and distribution? Laws, parameters, compliancy. Pass that down.
Okay, I'll take this. Right now we're in a loophole, just like a lot of the Oregon marketplace is in a loophole. Busy Bee operates with an OHA license at a dispensary, so that we have a point that the OHA right now approves to have security force there, to have safes there, where we have inventory systems there to keep track of it. It's a public safety risk right now to consolidate a lot of marijuana in one location, unless it's at somewhere that's secure. And so with that being said, the loopholes keep on closing around us. We get things taken away from us as a distribution company the same time they get taken away from you guys as producers or you guys as dispensaries. And it's part of our business model to have that in there and be part of it, to be able to provide you guys with all those products that the patients are used to coming in and paying us for, buying and medicating with. So be that we're in a loophole right now, it's a little bit of a misnomer to even call any of us a distribution company. We're all offering distribution services. We're all, wholesaling. Some of us are wholesaling at some locations or other locations or off. That solution is different among us, I would say. But I think we have that in common, that we're all kind of skirting this law in order to build this program because we know that it's going to be part of the infrastructure that the industry needs.
Yeah, I just wanted to provide a follow-up to that. So you can sort of operate a distribution wholesale company in the context of you operating as brokers of transactions. If you think about yourself as a representative of the producers and processors and other businesses that you work with, insofar as we understand, there aren't any issues with taking a fee that is associated with the movement as a representative of that product. So these loopholes that Charles is talking about, there are sort of some increased efficacy in terms of how you can manage them if you do have a dispensary attached to the business. But for those of us that don't, you can still operate as a broker of these transactions. So that's something to keep in mind as we would introduce ourselves. That is a component of the conversation. Now, all of us, I think, are intending or have already applied for wholesale licenses with the OLCC. We certainly have intend to transition into the OLCC's recreational wholesale licensure. And once we do that, I think we'll all be able to behave the way that we all want to be able to behave, which is how a traditional wholesale distribution company operates, which is really, I think, probably the most important component there is a function of efficiency. They're low-margin businesses. So anyway, I'll hand it off to whomever's next, if anybody else wants to.
So as far as the current time, how we're actually able to legally transfer this product is whoever is transferring the product has to be a patient. You can only carry as much product as cards you have on you, and you can only transfer as much product to a dispensary as you have cards for. So currently right now, it's really just a medical patient with one or more, generally more than one card if you're wanting to go through cities. But it's not that we, as a dispensary, can hire employees that don't have cards and things like that. You have to make sure that whoever has the product has a card and has those on them present at all time, has authorization to transfer forms signed by their patients. If they're not just transferring under one card, their own patient card, if they want to transfer 3-4 pounds, they need to have an authorization to transfer form signed by multiple patients, and they need to have that with them so they prove that they have the ability to transfer more than 1.5 pounds at a time.
And I think that's another reason too, is the constant flux between each dispensary and their different transforms and intake forms is why it's kind of difficult for most producers to get their product to retail dispensaries. And that's why it's really handy to work with a distribution company that already has those forms and contacts in place. I'll just leave it at that.
Fantastic. And Kelly and Lindsay talked a little bit about the nuts and bolts, the paperwork that's required. Can any of you speak to the day in a life of a distributor? Describe the drop. Chris?
Yeah, I'd say it's a lot of, it's a little bit chaotic with a lot of rigidity and procedures in place. It's kind of akin at this point for most of us to a traveling salesman mentality. I don't think anybody would go out there and be like, I'm going to start a business tomorrow and I'm going to send out a bunch of traveling salesmen everywhere, unless you're selling like Cutco knives or something of that nature. Typical wholesale distribution companies operate on very low margins. You have to have a high degree of efficiency. You have to have a high degree of discipline. You're dealing with a very, very valuable product. A distinct separation between delivery and sales is an important component. But most of the businesses in the distribution landscape right now, as their patient representative salespeople are going out and enacting transactions with dispensaries, they're often doing that with product on hand, which obviously represents a security and a liability issue. And I think that if we're thinking about where this industry is going to go, it's going to go away from that. You're going to have brand representatives. You're going to have folks that are going out in the field that are talking about products that are scheduling orders or going through your e-commerce channel or your other channels that you might be intaking through your internal call center activities and that kind of thing. That's all going to get consolidated and managed. And in fact, the way that the legal paradigm is set up, it's conducive to that kind of behavior. So what's happening right now is not representative, I think, at all of what it's going to look like within 9 months.
That's exactly how we run Busy Bee Distributing. It is.
And you're doing very, very well.
Thank you.
It's great to hear the parallels. Did anyone else want to speak to that question? No worries. So personally, I'm curious about security. What is required and what is allowed?
Well, at this time, being that we are an unlicensed, unregistered company, there actually are no guidelines, so it's really up to your own internal preferences and standards, but we have nobody overseeing or regulating what we are doing at this time. There are people who have commercial vehicles and who are, running a very commercial business, and there's people who do it out of their own car. So really, the risk is high. I don't think it's very advertised. We don't drive down the road generally like Pepsi trucks. Everybody knows what we're doing. But as far as security goes, you're not allowed to have weapons on you at the same time as you have a controlled substance, or firearms, I should say. But so really, we have no standards yet. This is evolving.
Adrian?
From what I understand, we need to keep our product locked within our locked vehicle, and as we transport it from our vehicle to the dispensary, it needs to be locked and closed and sealed, so you can't see it. But Lindsay's right as far as security and whatnot. Pepper spray is a good one, but.
There actually are no open container laws in Oregon as far as that. So, they would appreciate if we had it locked away, but at this given time, there are no open container laws in Oregon. You could have it on your seat, and the cop cannot give you a ticket.
Basically, our policy at Green Sea is if somebody approaches you and wants to hijack you in the dispensary, here's the keys.
Safe. Good.
Safe, but I think armored trucks are in the near future, and a lot of security, as cartels know about distribution in Oregon and other routes that we're going. They're going to beef up security. We definitely have plans with our vehicles to keep them monitored.
Fantastic. And speaking of gray areas and speaking of closing loopholes all around us, I wanted to chat a little bit about the new regulations on extracts versus concentrates. And I wanted to ask how and if that's affected your businesses or any of your clients or business partners.
Yeah, it definitely has had an effect. The 3 days that was announced and then amended there pretty quickly after. We had some dispensaries that were having temporary closed signs posted that they weren't sure what to do. We did a lot of compliance consulting during that time. Charles was talking with a lot of producers about that. Now that it's more clear about what's the difference on extracts and concentrates, which the definitions seem to be reversed. It's affecting business a little bit, but there's so many other products, to market that it's just kind of a holding period.
Certainly. And are folks aware of this issue out there? Just a quick raise of hands, extracts versus concentrates. Okay, fantastic. Let's hear from Lindsay.
For myself personally, that's half of my business, so it has been huge to see that. I've seen companies lay off their employees. That hurt a lot. I've had to lay off employees. That hurt a lot. But in the end, it kind of gave an opportunity to shine new light on some products that the consumers are passing over. Things like ice wax, rosin, stuff like that. They've been overlooked for a while. They do have a little higher ticket price on them. There's a lot of man hours and labor that go into these products, but they're awesome, especially things like ice wax and rosin. They're solventless, they're clean. You tend to get a lot more terpenes out of them, and so I'm finding that initially, as soon as this happened, I called all of my producers for those products and was like, look, it hasn't been selling well, but it's going to, at least for a brief period of time. And so although I've felt the hurt in one area, it's been really nice to see people exploring these other products that are actually healthier. So.
I've been receiving a lot of questions from dispensary owners about other products and how they're made. And so what it's done for manufacturers, at least people that I represent, it's, I've asked them for more information, which is really nice because it adds to their product, but it also provides the dispensary with security and understanding more about what they sell, which is really nice. As far as the extracts goes, I don't sell extracts, so it didn't hurt my business, but I've definitely heard about companies within the industry, and I hope it changes and we all get right back on track.
I'll just add one quick thing to that. I think that, it certainly impacted a number of businesses, particularly businesses that were very high volume output producers. A lot of the companies in the cannabis space right now don't have very significant wherewithal. They're not particularly well funded, and so like any small business, if you've got to shut down and can't operate for as much as 2 to 3 weeks to a month, you've got to start looking at making changes to your business to survive. I think a lot of people just sort of, at least in this kind of a space, just hunkered down, and we figured there was going to be some kind of a fix. And I think within the confines of the law, the fix that went into place is as good as we're going to get, and I think that you'll see most processors that are going to be able to get a OHA license to process, they'll submit their application on or around April 1st, which is on Friday. So I think the market's going to be back to where it needs to be. We certainly stopped selling all extracts immediately. So anyway.
I think this was a good chance for us to look at the OHA too and say to them, why weren't you regulating this for the last 5 years or 6 years? And I think right now, tonight's forum is a good chance for us to all get together and say, let's go regulate the testing industry, because people like OG Analytical are doing this the right way. And really that's what it comes down to. This is a crimp in the supply chain to make sure that the people that are participating are doing it the right way. So it's a good thing. Honestly, the people that are going to go get this license and pass and get their license are the people that we wanted to be buying medicine from in the first place. So it's going to happen over and over again. Actually, over the next 2 years, I think that every time they're going to find something like this, change it, tweak it, they're going to get rid of the people who were trying to get around doing things the right way.
Certainly, yeah. Out of crisis comes opportunity, and it definitely is speaking to the regulation that we need. I know it's been a huge blow to the extractor community, and as Lindsay mentioned, the job losses and the closures have been a really, really big deal. But when a door closes, oftentimes a window opens. So it's good to hear there's been some silver lining around this gray cloud. Well, next up, I wanted to hear a little bit about some of the biggest challenges. What's that wrench in your daily wheel that you'd like to see freed up? Adrienne?
Consistency with vendors, creating that consistency and understanding that, as you create your supply, we want to track, how many dispensaries you can work with that we can consistently supply. With edibles, it's every week. Okay, great. How many edibles can you create every week? How many dispensaries can we work with? I see companies growing really fast, and it can hurt the business. But I really like to work with the manufacturers and farmers in setting up that consistency. And that's for me. That's my thing.
For me personally, it's been working with a lot of the older growers. I've known them for a long time, but they have their habits and their ways that they do things, and that's not quite the way that we do things here and now. So trying to help these individuals build a brand, trying to help them come full circle with compliancy, and I understand that it's tough to pay for testing, and I understand that a lot of Southern Oregon outdoor growers do very large batches of things, and so they want to test them immediately and know what they should sell from there, but we need it packaged, we need it tamper-proofed, making sure that people don't make little mistakes as simply as the labeling of things. You could have one number off on your batch number and it's no longer valid to be taken into a shop. So it's really getting the organization down for me personally, not with myself internally so much, but with the vendors and the growers that I'm working with. Getting their product to the point where I can walk in the store and not have to even think about whether or not it's ready to go.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Lindsay. We work a lot with producers and, dialing in every little detail on compliancy, which changes week to week. Finding that right packaging sometimes is really challenging, the compliant child-resistant packaging to put it on the shelves. So sourcing that's been really fun and getting stuff made. On the other side, on the retail dispensary side, I'd have to say paperwork, because they're all so different. So streamlining that process, that transfer, that delivery manifest, that intake form, that chain of custody, and really dialing that in is going to be really nice, because we deal with a lot of paperwork in a distribution model.
Thank you. Chris? Yeah.
I would say that overall there's a significant lack of I guess what I would call sophistication as a result of maturity of industry. Outside of the regulatory hurdles that we're all facing that are consistently and constantly being presented in front of us, in mature industry, having an outlook into what's happening on your supply chain is a common thing. Understanding what the rules and requirements are, they're not changing every day. They might change it once a year or every 6 months or whatever. And so that kind of lack of sophistication combined with all the other elements means that, and I think that summarizes a lot of what I'm hearing up here, things like consistency are not always there. Confusion out in the marketplace. One PRF may say, hey, my understanding of current rules and guidelines is X, when maybe it's really Y, and the next person doesn't know that, and so you're sort of playing this educator combined with all the other pieces that you're out there doing. And then the market's changing so fast, everybody's constantly asking you, what is your opinion on what's going to happen here? And what do you think is going to happen over here? And what's going to happen here? When the reality is you can take a shot at it, and you can have some ideas about what you're going to do, but that lack of intrinsic sophistication, at least for us, is I think one of the largest sort of challenges that we're constantly having to rise to, and that can really put a real hard clamp on how quickly you can scale, how quickly you can go from point A to point B, because as you scale, everybody that's on the opposite end of the equation has to be receptive to that. So I think as the industry matures, as we have a better understanding of what's going on in the industry, how many people are going to actually get licenses, what the supply chain is going to look like, how the transitions are going to happen when we all go on the recreational side, you'll see a lot more coherence. And right now, you just don't have that coherence as a result of the immaturity and the lack of sophistication. And I don't mean that in any kind of a negative way. That's just the reality of the situation, I think, for most businesses in this landscape.
And I have a little bit different tack on that. Is we're developing a consulting branch for Busy Bee right now to help retailers kind of uncork the bottle on their stores, because I think there's a lot of stores sitting on very good locations, and they know a lot about marijuana, but they don't know a lot about the retail industry, and the whole supply chain, I have to say, can completely outsupply the Oregon marketplace. So the constraint on the market is in the retail space, and it's a fight for retail space and a fight to get things packaged right and display in order so that the customers are choosing the right product, are happy with that product, and happy with your store and come back to your store. And I think that's my daily, that's the problem I'm trying to solve, is how do we get all the stores in Oregon to represent themselves and their products the best way possible, so that when someone from out of state, or a regulator, or a mom, or a grandma, or anyone comes in, they're impressed with cannabis in Oregon. And I think that's something that drives my day-to-day function.
But that's a function of their own level and capabilities with respect to how they're going to go out and represent their business. We can augment that, and we can support that, and I think that we're all actively doing that. But if you pick the wrong retail location, or you don't know how to run a business, it's very difficult to force feed that into the marketplace.
Thank you. So last question from me, so everybody please get your questions ready here. Where do you see the future of distribution headed? Intrastate distribution, in-state complications?
Well, definitely the future of Oregon is export. So I hope that's where we're all looking, of course. But, it's really, we're figuring out and defining right now in Oregon, who's our quality producers, who our quality, manufacturers, where our retail locations are. I mean, we have like 40,000 producers in Oregon and 400 plus licensed retail dispensaries. I mean, we're definitely immature stage right now, so it's just an evolving process. It's exciting to sit back and be a part of it and help out and get there, but I think we're all looking the future is, we're going to be a big export state with all of our excess.
I think that we're going to start seeing most products going through distribution channels and supply channels as this moves forward. Like any other industry in the world, that's generally how they move their products. So I think that the distribution companies, even though right now we don't have our legal space in the industry, we obviously know we're going to soon with the OLCC, but I think, like she had mentioned, this is going to be a huge thing for Oregon because we will be exporting to the rest of the nation. It's just kind of like Charles said, we want people to think of Oregon products as quality. And fortunately for us so far, the rest of the world does think that way. So as long as we can maintain this and we can carry on with the high-end quality products, that's all I see. I see large companies distributing all over the entire United States.
I think the most important thing to do right now is to get Oregon right. And then once we've gotten Oregon right, then we can look at exporting Oregon brands. You're going to continue to see, brands from Colorado and Washington get licensed with different companies here in Oregon. You're going to see those brands coming in. You already are seeing those brands. Some folks up here represent those brands already. So, those things are going to continue to happen. But I think Oregon really is a gem of this industry, and Oregon, I think, has an opportunity to get out in front of really the entire country in terms of its production output. And once we've figured those things out and once things are humming, then I think it's time to start looking at multi-state. And I think that that's probably what will happen next is you'll see states that have legal precedents already set. Washington and California being the two that make the most sense. I think next with Oregon. And then once that happens, you'll see it uncork and you'll find a national opportunity, and then from there, potentially an international opportunity. But there is a lot of business to be done in Oregon. There are a lot of things to get right. So at least for us, with our business, we're focused on getting those things right in Oregon first. And once we understand that, we can help take the Oregon brands and extend their reach. And in some cases, we're already helping with those things through licensure and that kind of things for brands we currently represent.
One thing that I really enjoy right now where the industry is how personal it is. Working with the dispensaries, we still work with a lot of the owners. When you get a product, it usually starts with the owner selling it and really loving it and believing it and getting you on the product. As distributors, right now we're still on the same level, I think, of working with the owners where we feel the product and the love that went into it. As the industry grows, that will change. So right now is a really great time to build your brand and really get it out there.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more about building brands. What we're going to see come in from out of state is going to be money in addition to brands. And they're going to be trying to buy our infrastructure out from underneath us and influence the legislature and make the things that we do too expensive to do anymore, so that only people with lots of money can come in and run this industry. And we need to be unified as an Oregon cannabis entity, and that's why things like the Trade Alliance, and actually it's one of the side products of working with distribution companies, is you create local representation and a unified representation. And so, I think that Chris had an impact on getting this resolved so quickly with the extract thing at the state. I know that Busy Bee had an impact down there, and some of these big companies had an impact too. So there's pros and cons of that, but the future of cannabis is it's big money. It's big regulation. It's going to go federal. Big Pharma is going to get involved. They're going to come up with cannabinoid cocktails and try and tell you what plants you can and can't grow and what kind of extracts you can and can't grow. And I'd say it's going to be a really quick grab for intellectual property the day that cannabis gets rescheduled. So that's a yucky 5 years, and then maybe 10 or 20 years from now, it'll be like the beer industry and it'll be good again. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. Any last comments before I turn it over to the audience? All right, I'm going to trade mics with you. Thank you so much. All right, so I'm coming down. Who's got questions? All right, right up front here in the burgundy.
Yeah, that's the issue. It's becoming a booming business. And my question is, what is being done on this cash level and being able to securely put this money in banks, for instance, or some way? Because that's, these days, cash is, it's pretty heavy. It's a lot to deal with, and it's an insecurity issue as well.
So I think everybody may have similar but slightly different opinions on this. But at least from my perspective, the banking challenge is a very big challenge. If you are a dispensary or have a dispensary attached to your business, there is a bank, MAPS Credit Union, that is sort of covertly banking cannabis businesses. Well, I don't have an NDA with them, so. But outside of that, that really only applies to the retail paradigm because they're attaching to the OHA license that retailers can inure. So for the rest of us, you sort of have to play, and even for businesses that are on the retail side, you sort of have to play this banking game where you're opening a bank account and you're flowing money through it, and then they figure it out, and then they shut it down. That's a huge public safety issue. I've been to Washington, D.C. twice with the Oregon Cannabis Association to lobby in Washington, D.C. on two issues primarily, banking and IRC 280E. I think that Senator Wyden, who's the chairman of the Senate Banking Committee, he's now supporting banking. Obviously, Representative Congressman Blumenauer is making a lot of efforts in that facet. But banks, because they have FDIC insurance, they run significant risk if they don't adhere to the Cole memo in how they bank cannabis companies, and that's a very onerous task. You probably all knew about MBank, who is signing up cannabis businesses left and right, and they said, look, we can't do this anymore. The cost of compliance is too high at adhering to the Cole memo. For a distribution company that's flowing a lot of revenue on a daily basis through its business, we are very different than a retailer. Many orders of magnitude, potentially. So the only sort of saving grace that we have is because most of us are operating on small margins, that money gets flown back out quickly. I think if there was a dispensary that was attached to the business, as is in Busy Bee's case, and Charles can speak to this, that is an advantage right now from a banking perspective. And banking is a serious issue, and it's a public safety issue, and it's really, really stupid that we can't bank because here we have this, hey, we want you to be hyper-regulated. Well, you can't have hyper-regulation, you can't have good regulation without following the money. That is like the cornerstone to regulation. And if you can't follow the money, then you don't know what's going on. So, I know the state is working on fixes to at least, put some assurances in place that banks aren't going to be, that are openly banking cannabis in Oregon, if they're adhering to certain guidelines, are going to have some state level protection that still doesn't impact the federal piece. So that's a very long way of answering the question, but the answer is banking is a really awful, terrible thing that we all are having to contend with on a regular basis.
Didn't the state say that we can do inside Oregon banking now with credit unions?
That's what they've said.
So there's an opportunity right now for anyone with lots of money to start a credit union in Oregon, or for a credit union to arise. I know. It's that guy with, or for this to arise out of the unification and the formation of a co-op. And I think that's something that we have an opportunity to do as an enterprise here, is to form a co-op in Oregon and create a banking institution out of that. So it's going to take work, but it's going to take group work together to do lots of these things.
All right, next question up front.
Hi. Ooh, wow. This is strong. Okay, so my question is, we're talking about residency. A year ago, for your Pruzonsky 4 years minimum. This last summer, it's 2 years. It got knocked down to 2 years. Now there's no residency at all. And we're talking about people coming from outside of our state with so much money. What about the people within our state that are vertically integrating so that they're pushing out other people for their services? How is that fair? And what checks and balances do we have in place to prevent that dominance, that capital dominance in our own state?
The really unfortunate answer is this is business and it's a free market and that's America. That's what I went to college for. There is no stopping big money. We can try to put up the rules, something like the residency rule. The reason it came about was because we were trying to enforce that, but they actually found that to be federally illegal due to the fact that the United States is allowed to have an open and a free market. So you cannot restrict people from entering your market due to where they live, due to gender, race, sexual orientation, any of those things. It's just part of business in general. So to keep out larger money and larger businesses like that, the only thing to do is build yourself up, and that's the sad truth.
I just want to add something real quick to that. This is an issue that I was really sort of in favor of not allowing, money coming into Oregon. And that was kind of an initial opinion that I had, and that was founded on this idea that, money can come in, but we can't go there. So if, dollars come from California or someplace else, we can't go into California right now and compete in the same level, so we're at a slightly smaller market. That said, there's two issues that I think have changed, at least my opinion on it. One is that you're not going to stop the money anyway. The residency requirements, they weren't stopping the money. You talk to any good corporate attorney, that corporate attorney is going to figure out how to get past that through convertible notes and other kinds of things. So you weren't going to stop the money anyway. So that's one, and I think that's a really important one. And the second piece is that, in a way, and this is kind of to assent what Charles had said earlier, working with a distribution company gives you a more powerful voice in the industry, depending on the sort of opinion and voice that the distribution company is projecting into the industry. So I think that there really is going to continue to be an opportunity for the craft industry to thrive, and I don't think it's in anybody's best interest for the craft industry to fall to the wayside. And then probably the last piece to that is a lot of the businesses that we work with have been struggling, and some of them have taken on capital from outside organizations. Still the same leadership, still the same people, still the same adherence to the same core principles, but now they have more money to go out there and to do the things that they want to do. So if we can't stop it, and people might need it, it makes sense to allow it. As much as I'd like to see Oregon get a leg up, I think that it is a free market economy, and we're going to stop it anyway. So that's just an added perspective.
Thank you. More questions?
I think this kind of just furthers that, but especially with big money coming in, what as distributors can you guys do to protect the Oregon brand? How can you sort of save that for the producers that are already in and already functioning? What's your role in keeping that?
I'd like to say I feel like I got into this business for the right reasons. I was born in southeastern Washington, but I've lived in Oregon for 31 and a half years, and I'm 32 years old. So I'm an Oregon native. I believe in this state. I'm a small business owner. I own other businesses outside of the cannabis industry. I'm a software engineer by trade. And I really support the Oregon economy, and I want to see Oregon succeed in a big way. And I think that, when you're dealing with a small voice, and a small voice is usually voting with dollars, right? Let's say you're doing $1 million in revenue, and that person over there is doing $100 million in revenue. They have a comparatively larger voice, right? So with distribution company, and I can tell you with us, we are actively involved in advocacy. We are actively involved in the community. We are actively involved in trying to represent an opportunity for the craft farmer, for the craft processor, for the craft businesses to succeed, because I really think that that is in many ways the heart and soul of America, not just, you know, the Oregon market. It's not these huge, large entities that are all greedy, and not all of them, but many of them are greedy and monolithic and evil. It's true. It's it's my grandfather who started, business farming apples, and doing other things. Those are the people that are really, I think, moving things forward. So to answer your question directly, I think that through advocacy, we can assist. Through industry representation, we can assist through sort of conglomerate funds, pooled funds that come into distribution, percentage of revenue, those kinds of things. Those are all things that we can do if we have enough suppliers and enough demand to help represent certain ideologies in the industry. And that's a conversation that, if anybody's interested, am happy to have all day long, because it's very fundamental to our business. That doesn't mean that we don't want to get your brands into other states. That doesn't mean that we don't want to see at least our company on a national level. So I hope that answers your question, at least from my perspective. Anybody else?
I think the most important thing we can do to protect you is establishing your brand and getting your brand out there. That's really what we have to offer. We're sitting in the position of, we do work with growers and we work with dispensaries. We know what is appealing. We know what needs to be done to make your product market ready. And if we want to compete with big companies, you have to be compliant. You have to meet those inspections. You have to meet those requirements. And you have to be liked by the consumer. So the easiest way for us to do that is to guide you, to help you, because it benefits us. If your product is a great product that sells well, we don't have to sell it, we just bring it there. And if your product can sell, then you are competition. I mean, little companies do make it and they do win, but it's going to take a lot. And I think we provide the avenue.
Other comments on protecting local interests?
Yeah, I have to agree with brand strategy, really getting your farm out there, your product out there, branding that it's made in Oregon, born in Oregon, and setting yourself up with good web presence, good, brand representation all across the board, and give yourself a fighting chance against them.
I'd also add to that, if you really want to support local, to vote with your dollar and buy local, and encourage your friends to buy local and support Oregon businesses.
I have a question. We're talking about growers, but how about fertilizers and growth enhancers of that sort? What involvement do you have with fertilizers or growth enhancers? And if the answer is no, I guess who and where is the industry going in terms of?
So are you thinking more like durables, non-cannabis related products, like grow equipment and stuff?
Not equipment, but fertilizers.
You mean, so like trades between?
Bloom or root growth enhancers or other types of fertilizers.
I don't personally work with them now, but I think the distribution companies, as this industry moves forward, these are the exact types of other products that we will be carrying. We will become a full service, distribution company. And at that point, we are the companies that are working with the growers, the processors, and so we know who needs what. And that is just us learning to work in reverse, not just bringing products to the market, but also bringing products to the growers. So at this time, I don't work with anybody, but I think that there's mass potential for you guys to be worked with through distribution channels in the future.
And if I may, just to clarify the question, so are you looking for cannabis safety and preventing synthetic nutrients or growth enhancers from entering the market?
Not synthetics or anything of that sort, but more natural, stuff like bone meal or fertilizers like fish meal or of that sort.
So we're the first Clean Green certified wholesaler in the country, I think. That doesn't mean that all of our producers and processors follow quote unquote, well, I guess we can't really call it organic, but they don't follow more biologically sound approaches, but we do engage a lot of businesses that are clean green certified. That is an important part of, I think, the Oregon ethos, the cannabis community at large. I think we have an opportunity to talk about, how to make sure that, your meds are clean and the products that you're producing are done in an ecologically and biologically friendly way. And so, I think that there are steps that are being taken at least in the distribution landscape, and particularly through our organization, to try to help move those ideologies forward. But I don't think it will be possible. I mean, at this stage, I don't think it's possible to, or do we know enough about the science? I mean, cannabis is often planted in areas that have high metallic volumes in soil, and nobody's even talked about the issues of what kind of heavy metals are getting into, the cannabis cultivation, and how is that impacting people? We've been talking about pesticides and all these other issues. So I think as a function of the evolution of the industry, there's going to be more conversations about those kinds of things happening, potentially more regulation about those things happening, and at least for our business, being a part of that and a steward of that is important to us.
Thank you. And if I may just add too, I agree with you completely, Chris. I think the future is in certification and in laboratory testing. And as you said, currently there is no heavy metals testing for cannabis flowers. There is testing, however, for PGRs, or plant growth regulators, and I believe Bethany currently tests for paclobutrazol, if I'm not mistaken. Other questions?
Hi, I just have a comment, and it was about something you mentioned about cooperativism, I think the gentleman in the green shirt. And I agree that strength is in numbers, and through cooperativism, you can build strength. And I was wondering if you met more formal cooperative businesses, like I was a Hodad tree planter, and we were a co-op, or if you were talking about us just working together more. But I'm thinking also back to like the Grange mentality and the canneries, and I just wondered if you could address that a little more.
I'm thinking of an actual co-op like Tillamook, like the Tillamook Farmers Co-op, where Oregon creates a brand that's so strong that Kraft can't come in and buy out any farm in Tillamook, because they're all part of this supply chain that has a national brand. We don't know what that brand is going to be. And Tillamook, when they started, didn't know that they were going to have that organization. But surely for them, having that cooperative arrangement is part of the structure. Cooperatives are really neat. They actually can't move state to state. So if we have a cooperative in Oregon, it literally is, it's never going to go out of state. It's only going to ever be Oregon only. And it can be something where you can opt in one year and opt out another year. Oregon is a good state to form co-ops, and they actually have a lot of advantages to doing it. And I mean, so yes, I do mean a formalized co-op. And Busy Bee at several junctures has looked at creating a cooperative model, and it's not in the cards currently, like next 2-year time frame. But it is something that we always talk about with our vendors, our suppliers, is selling Busy Bee back to them as a cooperative model and turning it into essentially cooperatives work as a nonprofit. All the executive members are elected, and a representative of the farmers. And I think that's a really good way to prevent out-of-state money coming in, because if the cooperative is commanding 95% of the shelf space at the retail market, and all the retailers are bought into this cooperative because they're part of it, why would they ever make space for the Budweiser of marijuana when they show up? I mean, it's... I guess that makes sense to you guys too.
Question up front here.
So as the cannabis industry gets bigger, do you guys see it being distribution and regulation being handled more like the alcohol and liquor industry, or more like other agricultural products like tobacco or corn or foods and stuff? And then also, do you see different? Because like outdoor, if you grow outdoor, it's
I love
more
that
like
question.
traditional agriculture, and if you grow indoor, it's almost more like manufacturing. And will those two be regulated different as well?
Oh yeah, I could go off on that question. When the OLCC is involved, they're going to want to regulate it like bottles, because that's what they know. I think that you're going to see in the regulations, they're going to really quickly push us to have prepackaged marijuana where it's packaged at a processor. no one touches anything other than the plastic until the customer opens that bag up when they get home or in their car. They're curious. They're not going to use it. They're just going to smell it. That's what they want to do. So I think that's how Oregon's going to go. I don't think there's any economies of scale that can be achieved in marijuana at that level. So I think nationally it's going to go the way tobacco did. And I think, that's kind of the 20-year plan. And I think that's when weed's going to get cool again, is when we can, I hate to say this, but run the crop harvester over the field and just take the tops off and send everything else to the extractor. That's when this gets efficient enough for us to supply the entire world with marijuana. And I think that's where Oregon's going to really be good.
I think
how do we get to that point, though, without it being Philip Morris of tobacco? How do we make it so that a small farmer can still find a place when the industry becomes where you just run a thresher over and take it all?
The co-op is my main, that would be one of the main avenues for getting there. The other is going to involve organization, because otherwise money's going to destroy organization every time. If you guys aren't voting this year, that's an example of money destroying organization. As much as money does have power, it only has the power of someone that's willing to buy what someone's willing to sell. And so if we're not willing to buy it, they end up with a warehouse full of weed. And what's that worth? I mean, not on the black market, in the white market.
I just want to make the comment that every other company in the world, or most of them, started out on their own 2 feet, and they had to grow to be where they were, and most of them, again, had competition to some degree. So what it takes is you and me and us working together. What it takes is man hours. What it takes is time, blood, sweat, and tears. And it takes not giving up, point blank. I mean, every other company had to go through that. It's not going to be a cakewalk. It's not going to be easy. We're going to have big competitors. Some of us will fail, and we will merge, and we will become under one company, and we'll be all the stronger for it. But really, at the end of the day, what it takes is you, your time, your energy.
I have a slightly different thought on what I think is going to happen regulatory-wise. If you look at what California is doing right now, they're certainly setting that model up to lean a little bit more in the favor of the existing alcohol industry. And I think that, taxing a bunch of retailers, if you're wearing the OLCC visor, is a lot more complicated than taxing a handful of distributors. So, So I wouldn't be surprised, it's okay, I have 2 little ones too. I wouldn't be surprised if you see movement in that direction.
Next question.
Hi, my name's Jane. My brand is Applegate Jane. You may have seen these little cans. My friend have the factory, and I was the first clean green certified garden in the state of Oregon. So I'm really excited about that. I'd like to ask if any of you only work with clean weed, I'm really passionate about that, and I'm an Oregon resident my whole life, born and raised, my family back generations, and while I think there is room for the, chop the tops off, it's not my style. So I'm just curious, as distributors, I don't have a distributor to work with, I'm curious about that, and I'm wondering if anybody is also passionate about only working with people who are thoughtful about their weed and the land that it's grown on.
At least in our case, we don't work only with clean green certified businesses. The companies that we work with that are clean green certified, Evolved Organics, I think he's the only clean green certified CO2 extractor in the state, and there's one other now. Hi-Fi Farms, Phoenix Rising Farms. We've done business in the past with So Fresh, other businesses. So that's certainly important to us, but I don't think there are enough clean green certified businesses out there to maintain the needs of the supply chain, and until such time, at least for us, I think it's going to be complicated.
I want to mention too, there's also certified kind. So there's a few certifications. You know, you have people come in, you pay money, have them inspect your grow or your process facility. Our Charles Weller at Green Sea, he's a certified kind processor. We also work with Toro Ma, handcrafted vegan organic chocolate bars, and they're certified clean green. So, you know, the product, the market's getting there. People are becoming more aware, and it just takes education and getting people to getting those certifications.
I think that, and I know I keep referring to big business, but that's where we're headed, so I think it's important to think about that. It doesn't matter what industry you're in, whether it's food, whether it's toilet paper, there's organic and there's not organic, and there's consumers for both of those markets. So I would love to tell you that in the future, everything that's gonna be on our shelves will be organic, will be natural. It's not gonna go that way. There's enough people who don't necessarily care about what they're ingesting, or they're worried more about the financial cost, so they're going to take what they can get for the price that they want to spend. And there's some people who just blatantly don't care. Every day, that's why when you go into most stores, you know, there's more non-organic and non-natural produce than there is natural. That's just, again, another feature of an open and a free market.
Adrian, did you have a response?
I think one of the services that we provide as distributors is the information about the farm and about the product so that you have the choice to purchase organic or non-organic. And that's really what it comes down to at the end of the day.
All right, next question.
Hi guys, so now that we're headed more towards bigger business, agriculture today typically runs on future markets, and I'm wondering what you guys know and are thinking about future markets for this industry.
Eventually, but that's after the grain harvester.
That's a hard question to answer. You're absolutely right that if you look at other agricultural crops, that's how things work. I think cannabis is a bit of a unique agricultural crop. Maybe you could draw some contrast to tobacco, but I think that it's going to be some time before you start seeing that landscape emerge.
Next question back here.
Hi. Unfortunately, I came in a little late, so if you've already gone over this, let me know and I'll talk to you after instead of taking the audience's time. But I'm wondering if, you know, what, if any, marketing or sales support you offer your clients?
Well, at least in our case, you know, we're pretty active in providing support services. We run our own systems, are pretty advanced. You know, we utilize ERP systems, that kind of thing. So we routinely will help businesses that we work with brand efficacy, development of products, design. We work with industrial designers. We work with print designers. We work with media designers. We work with a lot of different companies and software engineers and different folks that can help augment businesses in this space. So I think that, you know, that is a great source of opportunity for distribution companies to help prop up the brands that they work with. It's also a source of non-280E income, so we can be treated like normal businesses when we engage in consulting and ancillary services. I think you'll probably hear that as a constant theme. That said, that opportunity, the one thing I want to make clear, at least from our perspective, is that as you, as business owners operating your business, you have a responsibility to do the best that you can, right? And so as a distribution company, we can't be your business. We can help augment the efficacy of your business, but it's still your responsibility to be your business. It's still your responsibility to engage in marketing, to engage in the sales process, to be a team. And I think anytime you're working in an emerging market, especially, you know, with folks that maybe haven't had the same level of experience, you know, there's this sort of attraction to saying, like, if I'm a grower and, you know, like at my farm, my wife who runs our garden, she's like, well, I just primarily, want to grow, or I just want to do these different things, right? I don't want to have to worry about these other things. And there's a place for that, but right now, as the industry is evolving, the fastest way you can get in the doors is to have a great brand and to drive that sort of brand efficacy and collateral home. So the answer is yes, we certainly do it. I imagine everyone else here is sort of helping. I'll let everyone else answer. But that doesn't take away the responsibility to do a good job running your own business.
One of the things that distributors offer is our network, and that, as a distributor, I want to have a reason to go into every dispensary, whether that be for one product or all products. And so the advantage of picking up another vendor is that if you have a new product, as we go to our clients, we can show the product and help push the product and get it out to the dispensaries. And that happens really smooth and easily because we don't have to set a new product appointment. It's there, it's simple, we're in our process, and we say, hey, take a look at this new product. Here's some information. Do you want to check it out? And it's easy. And so we really, we can help build a brand. Of course, it takes a lot of work to get there, but we can definitely help on that side.
So as far as marketing and helping grow sales and grow your brand, we definitely help on all aspects at Green Sea. Getting your website live, helping out with social media. There's been shutdowns on social media, so knowing what you can say, what you can't say, writing press releases, getting those out to proper cannabis media outlets, really helping grow and market your brand in that sector. We definitely love doing that. That's definitely my passion is marketing. That's what I do at Green Sea.
I got a response?
I think the short answer is that it helps us if you have a good brand. So essentially, we desire to help you get there because then we don't have to work to sell your product. It just kind of sells itself.
All right, one more in the back, and we're going to have time for at least 2 or 3 more questions.
Hi, I also came in a little bit late. You may have talked about this, but considering the e-commerce these days where you can order online and have that product shipped to you, when do you think that might actually happen in the cannabis industry in this area, and what kind of legal things are we going to have to go through to make something like that happen?
Well, at this time, we can't even advertise through USPS, so we're definitely not going to be mailing anything anytime soon. But, and I mean that with it's a difficult thing. We're not even supposed to send out coupons and flyers, so we're definitely not sending product anytime soon. It has to be federally legal or at least descheduled before that's even going to be a dream of ours. I think that the mail is an extremely sensitive subject, and even after we have it federally legal, I can't guarantee you that the federal government and USPS is going to want to be our delivery system. And, maybe smaller companies like UPS and things like that down the road will, but that, in my personal humble opinion, is one of the farthest dreams that we have.
I wanted to clarify, were you meaning as a customer, like getting product from a dispensary to you, or a product from a distribution company to a dispensary? So I believe that there's legislation where you can, as long as in transit, as a retailer, they can set up a delivery service within the retail. So I'd contact your retail dispensary and see about delivery services with them.
So with the dispensary, if you want to be able to sell it, you can, once the recreational dispensary is around, you will be able to sell it solely through the dispensary itself, within your city limits, or if you're in an unincorporated part of a county, you can only sell it in your unincorporated area of the county. You can only take a certain amount. You can only deliver to that address one time a day, even if it's multiple people that you're delivering to. You can only go to one home address, no hotels, no things like that. You can go to one physical home address one time during a day, during specified hours in your specified city. They are going to allow you to place bona fide orders on the internet if you would like to do. If you own a dispensary that wants to deliver product and you have a bona fide order submitted to you by 4 p.m. that day, you can deliver it by 8:30 p.m. at the latest. But again, the limits are small. The amount of times it can go there is very limited. And then if you are a consumer and you decide to walk over to your neighbor's house and to order from there again, you better ask him to order because your name also can't be delivered to twice in a day.
Other responses from the panel? All right, next question.
I have a question for you going back to the organic topic. I've been talking with Andrew Black here, he is certified kind. He does the organic certification. And in our conversations, it kind of came up to the idea that doing organic is really difficult. It's not an easy thing. For us growers, there's got to be some motivation because I know other people that grow Kimmy weed and they make more money. That's just like a fact of life. And for those of us that are really interested in doing something that's healthy and much more conscientious for the end consumer and for the land that we grow it on, and we would like to do that, but we also have to pay our bills also, and we don't want to go broke while these other guys are getting rich doing it the bad way. And so I really believe that the motivation has to come from the other end. And so I'm kind of wondering what you guys have, if you have any power or ability to work with these dispensaries that you talk to all the time and say, hey, look, we've got a couple of organic growers. Will you pay 10 or 15% more for everything that they supply?
Outside of being, I think, a good practice to follow, USDA Organic is also a very powerful marketing engine. And I think that, the efficacy of programs like Clean Green certification will come through their ability to market and get people, the consumer, interested in it. That said, at least in our business with our Clean Green material that we distribute, we routinely will see 10 to 15% more consideration for that material at the dispensary than we do for material that is not Clean Green certified. So that doesn't happen all the time, and it's not a 100%. If you get Clean Green certified, it means you're going to make 15% more. But if you do a good job with your brand and you're Clean Green certified, it's going to help. And some of the other certifications as well, I'm sure, are doing the same thing. But that is a function of how effective they are from a marketing perspective. They have to get the word out. People have to want it. They have to come into the businesses. They have to ask for it. So.
And essentially what the market is telling us right now is that piece is missing, is that the shelf space isn't getting a premium at many stores for that. The store has to really be marketing itself to that customer group, and then they have to come in and get engaged with that store's whole model. And I think there's some stores that have good premiums for it, but I think stores in general don't communicate the advantages of organic or whether things are organic or not. That information may not even flow all the way out to the bud tender that's filling that person's order. So it's definitely marketing to create that pull off the shelf will create the premium. But until then, it's good that you're doing it, and it's going to be something that you're doing for the earth, and the wallet might not follow for a while.
Next question.
Hi, my name is Ellen, and I'm here in Eugene. And I'm a retired banker, and I don't get it. I'm standing here in the middle of a wonderful group of people, and there's lots of money in this town and lots of money in Oregon. Let's start our own damn bank. I'm a retired banker.
I agree.
It is not that difficult. It's not that hard. You have a safe that's safe, and you got a paid guard out in front. I mean, I have been a banker for more than 30 years, and I quit being a banker because I was more of a mom than a banker. But the point I'm making is, I'd be glad to help y'all. I have a relative who is a compliance officer that wrote all the regulations, and it's not that big of a deal. They just want us to think that.
So I think that would be great if somebody wanted to start a bank. Everybody I've talked to, just not to put a damper on the mood, but I've known of 4 groups, all that had the capital structure to support this. all of them that were not able to make it a reality. And it's not just as simple as saying, can we start a bank and to hell with insurance? We don't need to worry about that. It's a lot more complicated because the electronic transactions that are occurring, all the sort of back-end compliance pieces, if you're self-funding the bank, there's a lot of different components to starting a bank and being in a position to do that. I think that would be great. If somebody could solve that problem right now, that'd be great. But I think what's going to happen is as regulation comes, as licensure comes, banking is going to get easier. We are going to see companies like MAPS extending, I wouldn't be surprised, their programs or other banks, because they're really looking for that sheet of paper that says, okay, you're licensed by the state, you can behave in a particular way with respect to regulation.
How about we make use of our networking portion of tonight to talk a little bit further, because
yeah, and I would love to see it happen, no doubt. No, I agree with you 100%, and I would encourage you, if you think you can solve the problem, that would be great. Yeah, please help us all.
Thank you. I've got 2 questions up front. Here.
Okay, you said there was like 40,000 growers in Oregon. And as we know, we're stuck in the capitalistic market, and it has to expand. And your vision is to export. Okay, I'm just envisioning exports. What does that mean? That would mean that the laws would have to change across the states in order to even allow cannabis to come into their state, like what's happening in Colorado and Nebraska. So I'm just seeing if the laws change. It's a glut right now because now we have a lot of growers on the market. And what are we going to do, once more and more states become legal and people can grow their own for recreational? It's going to be interesting to see how we find places for the market.
I think there's going to be a lot of attrition, honestly, over the next 18 months across cannabis businesses as a whole. You can almost guarantee it. That happens in every emerging market, and I think this market in particular. You're right. If everybody was to go out and get a license and produce cannabis, you wouldn't have enough places to sell it to in Oregon, and you would bottom out the industry, and you get into a big price war, and everything's a race to the bottom. Those things aren't great, but I think that, like I said earlier, you're going to see these sort of connected states that have some kind of reciprocity laws in place where they're going to allow interstate commerce. I think that'll be phase 1, and I think phase 2 will be more of a federal condition.
Next question in back here.
My question is about taxes. When you pay it, when do you have to pay it, and how much do you have to pay? How does that work?
Yeah, you have to pay it. You can't not pay it.
But when?
So if you want to stay in business, you have to pay your taxes.
Well, everyone's got to pay taxes. I've heard you have to pay taxes immediately after the sale.
Oh,
when do you pay your taxes?
So it's not like any other business. We could pay taxes quarterly or monthly, whatever we want to do. One of the things about a distribution company is that there aren't as many sort of safe havens from with cannabis businesses with IRC 280E, as you probably all know or should know, you can write off costs of sales, but you can't write off any of your indirect expenses. So that means for a distribution company, we can do things like when we go and collect the freight or the product, that can be moved up into 263A, and we can take a deduction on that. But we can't deduct the cost to distribute the product. We can't deduct the marketing. We can't deduct the e-commerce. We can't deduct, even all of the employee time, depending on what's going on. So really, for a distribution company, if you look at retailers, a retailer might operate on a 55% cost of sales, so a 45% gross margin. Distribution company is going to operate on a gross margin of between 15 and 20%. That's just the nature of the beast. If you look at other industries that aren't taxed the way that we are, the average markup on product is between 18 and 24%. So if you don't scale up the volume quickly, or you don't have ancillary services, or you don't have sort of this commingled package of opportunity as a distribution company, you're probably not going to survive. I know this is sort of more information than what you're asking for, but the answer is pay your taxes, pay it as quickly as you can, so you don't get in a position where you can't pay your taxes. And there aren't a whole lot of safe havens if you're a distribution company. There's a few, but
And I think maybe part of what you're referring to is that recreational dispensaries have to pay their state sales tax by the 15th day of the following month, but the only part of the industry that is being applied that sales tax is the dispensaries. So as far as distribution companies, we can file quarterly or yearly, but we're not subject to that, the 25% tax, state tax. It's applied one time at the time of sale to the consumer, and they're required to get it to them by the 15th day of the following month. We don't fall under that bracket.
All right, looking for more hands. Who's got questions? I think I can fit in at least 2 more. We've got one here. All right.
Hi again. So I've just been wondering, as distributing companies or wholesaling, whatever you are, what is your most fun product to promote for your company? Because I keep seeing these like marijuana-looking like pins and earrings and necklaces. And that's Busy Bee? Awesome.
I mean, I just like selling extracts, but they're illegal, so.
One of the, I think the upcoming products that's going to be most interesting in the recent past for us will be the Pachecos, which Jesse with Ecofirma Farms is putting out. They're a filtered cannabis joint that looks a little bit more akin to higher class cigarette. He's got some really neat products. That and probably the Evolve products, just because I think they're really classy and we really like Evolved Organics.
I get really excited about good deals and process. Being able to represent a vendor and then bringing it to the retailer and everything just working and the price is right and everybody's excited about it makes me really excited about selling the product.
Yeah, and those are 420 Expressions. We're their exclusive Oregon distributor. And they are cool. Lots of people ask about them. But my favorite product right now is our rosin press. We have a rosin press that we happen to have in our catalog. The day that extracts got made illegal, we sold out of them in like 10 minutes. So that was pretty fun. That doesn't happen every day. It's a rosin press, like a desktop rosin press that we sell to stores and then they sell to their customers, and you just make your own extract without any butane.
Nice. I know I've got one more question over here. Other responses? Okay.
My name is Justin. I own Ward's Organic Weed. I just want to know the differentiation once OLCC happens. I own a restaurant. I pay a 40% tax on any profit made. What are you guys going to do to offset that offset that tax that's going to come your way?
The question is, what are we going to do to offset the expense of the tax? So I think the tax as it's going to be is already in place for the retailers. So, what are we doing? The best thing that we can do is to, use industry advocacy and other tools at our disposal to help minimize the tax burden. For us to go in and say, well, you're paying a 25% tax on the retail side, we're going to reduce our margins by 5%, let's say, to help offset that. Those things have to come from the whole supply chain. Supplier has to be on board with it. Distributor has to be on board with it. And right now, as a retailer, many retailers in the cannabis industry are operating on, they typically will mark up between 50 and 150% depending on the product. So the retailers have much more margin than we do. And so our margins are a lot smaller, and so we don't have as much wherewithal to go in and try to do things like that outside of trying to maintain a strong voice in the community to try to help offset that through whatever channels we have at our disposal. If anybody else has any other. I mean, I don't, and I mean, it's kind of hard to predict I think it's kind of hard to predict exactly what's going to happen on the supply side. I think that there's this sort of camp that's saying that we're going to have way too much supply. And then there's another camp that's saying we're going to have too little supply, and then it's going to funnel in and increase over time. And obviously that'll dictate market conditions and in some ways dictate profitability. So until we have, I think, a better handle on the number of farms that have submitted for licensure that will actually get licensed, which I'm hoping will be a large share of them, we won't know for sure exactly what's going to take place. But I do think that somebody is going to get squeezed somewhere here. And I think that the margins maybe aren't sustainable across the board for all businesses. And I think we already have an oversaturation, as much as I hate to say it, of dispensaries. I think we have an oversaturation of producers. And I think that the next 12 to 24 months is going to be really eye-opening in terms of what takes place in the industry, just as kind of a reality check.
As far as supply goes, the way that the law is written, the OLCC has the ability to shrink or expand the tiers that we're allowed to grow. So that's part of this cannabis tracking system and finding out where everything's going. If they found out that we produced way more than we needed that year, then next year your canopy size is going to go from 20,000 to 15,000. If they find out that we didn't produce enough, then your canopy size is going to go from 20 to 25. That is part of the law. They've implemented in there that they have the right to shrink and grow according to the usage that they believe we need.
Thank you. I want to sneak one last question in.
Thank you. It's simple. Do any of you work with smalls and littles in that, either to retailers or back to the extraction companies?
Say smalls, like small nugs?
Bee buds.
Oh, yeah, definitely. All day.
All right, there was one more hand in the back here.
Hi, I was just wondering, what kind of commitment are you guys looking for from producers in order to get involved with distributorship or wholesaling operation like you have?
Do you mean in terms of contractual commitment or?
Yeah, I mean, like, hypothetically speaking, say you're an outgrow grower, you're producing one large batch once a year. Mm-hmm. What sort of commitment outside of that?
Well, I mean, I think that, there are a lot of folks that are out there looking for letters of intent in terms of material supply. To go back to your question about what I would call pre-manufacturing and post-manufacturing opportunities, if you're an outdoor farm and you're producing, 1,000 pounds every year in a single harvest, it really depends on what your goals and objectives are. So if your goal is to have that material get moved into the concentrate or extract market, then that's one kind of conversation. If your goals are to produce a certain volume of top shelf indoor on a consistent basis, that's a different kind of conversation. But I think that you're going to see all distribution companies looking for some kind of commitment, either in the context of first right of refusal or bulk buys that are committed. You're just going to see that evolution occur. That's natural in business. And so I think that at least for us and our company, each deal is a little bit different and each opportunity is a little bit different, and each one has to be taken into consideration with what you're all about and your business is all about and how you operate your organization.
One of the important things that I find in distribution is to be able to consistently provide for the dispensaries, regardless of what the product is. The advantage of the distribution is that if we're lacking on one product one week, we can push another. And so, we always have something. If you're doing pulling a crop once a year, it is on a per case basis on how you want to work that out with the distribution. Right now, I think we're all learning, we're all growing, and we're all figuring it out. So it is case by case. Yeah.
I don't think it ever comes without some sort of a commitment, though. One of the commitments is if you're selling your flower out on the market, that you're selling it at the same price that we are, so we don't get in brand wars with your same brand. Really, lots of it just makes total sense. Farms are run so differently than other brands, though, that question, like what Chris was saying, the answer is different for you than it would be for someone that's packaging cartridges or someone that's making soap. So, yeah, different. but those models are evolving, I should say, where we're getting specific contracts for each of those industries or branches of this industry.
I think, again, it comes back to a lot to do with you. As far as me working with somebody, I will continue to sell their product as long as it's available, but you have to realize that I'm only going to sell it if it's of value. So I've worked with some people where they're like, well, you know, we operated on either this verbal or written agreement that we're going to sell each other's product. Well, I'll sell your product if it's sellable, so bring me something sellable.
Yeah, I think there's definitely exclusivity issues with distribution companies. With, you know, you might have dispensaries that you sell to direct already, and there's ways to work with that stuff, you know, so it complements, so it's a win-win for everybody. But it's really by, you know, per basis, per producer, depending on what product you want to put to market.
Any final comments from the panel? I want to thank the audience for your incredible questions, for the intelligence and the passion that I'm hearing and seeing in this room. That's exactly what's going to lift Oregon up to be a national leader and set the bar. Yeah. And I can't thank my panel enough tonight. You have answered all of our questions and then some. And just to finish up, I wanted to reintroduce you all so everybody's aware of your names and your companies. Just give a little wave as I shout you out. Charles Weller, the other Charles Weller, Busy Bee Distribution. Adrian Nelson with Cascade Cannabis Distribution. Chris Mallow with Highly Distributed. Lindsay Jacobson with The Drop. And Kelly Sue Buchwald with Green Sea Distribution. Thank you all so much for coming out tonight. And as our speakers exit the stage, I'd like to remind everybody that we're doing that GanjaCon ticket giveaway. There's still time. Stop by the OG Analytical booth and fill out a form. After our networking portion of this evening, I will be announcing the winner. And I have just a few more points if y'all would hang with me just a minute longer. So, if you have questions about cultivating cannabis or testing cannabis or Cannabis Science Pub, Bethany and I want to hear from you. We're going to leave our contact information up at the end of the night. OG Analytical and Oregon's Constant Garden are neighbors in the West 11th Avenue community in West Eugene. Please see our contact information and reach out with any ideas, comments, or suggestions that you may have. I also wanted to let folks know that all of these are being filmed, and video footage is available online through healthorganics.com. And this is all courtesy of Star Dog Botanicals. And we can't thank you enough for the amazing film that you've been capturing over the last 8 months for us. Thank you very much. And I will be announcing that GanjaCon winner at the end of this session. But I also wanted to share with you folks a little bit about what we're going to be doing next month. There was a lot of questions on stage about organic certification, and Clean Green Certified was mentioned, Certified Kind, and I wanted to add a third to the mix, Dragonfly Earth Medicines Pure Certification, and guess what? They're coming next month. We have an amazing speaker lineup from Dragonfly Earth Medicine to Clean Green, and even Omri is gonna grace us with their presence. So next month, put it on your calendars. We've got April 26th, organic certification. Please join us. And thank you all so much for another incredible Science Pub.